joining us from Bossier City, Louisiana, as we look at the Senate, outside the Senate chamber. Go ahead, Tracy.
Hi. Well, first of all, I'm going to let you know I was a Republican from 1984 until 2017. However, in 2017, I switched to no party because I can't even recognize the Republican Party any longer. These are men that don't seem to have any shame at destroying the Constitution. I've watched Democrats describe what has happened thus far, and their description is exactly what happened. They present visuals that coincide with their information. And yet the Republicans, when they get up there, they pontificate wild theories that the president blocking subpoenas is the equivalent to there being no evidence available or to be searched, and that we should now, because he's been blocking it since the hearings, we shouldn't even have it even now. For years, the Republicans were the ones who said, here, get a pocket constitution, read it, be familiar with it, know what your rights are. And now they're saying, oh, well, the Constitution, let's throw it out. And I simply can't. I don't even recognize what the Republican Party is anymore.
Tracy, thanks for the call. I'll leave it there. By the way, you can listen to the trial on the free C-SPAN radio app. All of it streamed on the web at cspan.org. On the Democrats line, Julian out in Los Angeles. How much have you been watching today, Julian?
I've been watching on and on today. I just got to say, I listened to some of the comments from the previous break, actually, and I wanted to respond to some of them because, honestly, it's been really disappointing to see how well that what in my opinion, cheap parlor tricks that are being used by the defense counsel seem to be working on my fellow Americans who do support Trump. Because every time I hear a Republican caller refer to a trial of a sitting president, and this is the only venue where a trial of a sitting president can occur. It's a serious matter. Every time I hear one of these callers refer to it as entertaining or it's theater or even they said it's boring, I don't understand why they're commenting on the theater aspect of it rather than the substance aspect of a trial of a sitting president. And I also want to mention all the theater that they're talking about is actually all created by the Republicans in this process. They're complaining about the House not presenting all their witnesses and evidence when they themselves are the ones that don't grant access to said witnesses and documents. I mean, it's just obvious. And they say again and again, executive privilege. And the defense counsel, even in this trial, admitted that they have never claimed executive privilege. And that came from Trump's own defense counsel. And yet they keep on talking about it in their opening argument. And I just think that the people who are talking about all this theatrical stuff need to be just awake to the fact that they are using it as an excuse. They're buying into this theater that's being presented to them, and they're using it as an excuse to be a know-nothing, to not engage in the substance of the issue. And again, it's the same thing as anyone wants to say, well, there's no substance because the House didn't pass it on a bipartisan basis, therefore there is no substance. Again, you are falling for a cheap parlor trick, which is being used by the Trump defense team, including the House, his attack dogs in the House, which is that they say any lack of bipartisan support is evidence of lack of substance. No, engage in the substance, because you could have a flawless case that is 100% flawless on the evidence, which I'm not saying the Democrats have, but they're close. But you could have a flawless case, and you could just have the House minority vote in party line against it, and people could use the same excuse. They need to wake up and look at the substance. It's obvious Trump is guilty. Thank you.
Here are some of the headlines, including the Orlando Sentinel, how the story is playing outside the Beltway, as we listen to Susan, who's calling on the Republican line from Hawaii. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning. It's
good evening.
Afternoon here
yes,
now.
Good afternoon. Go ahead.
But good evening. Yes, thank you. My curiosity is, as we've been watching this over and over today, as well as over a period of weeks, is it appears that the question to investigate the Bidens really set off a flare. And I'm really curious about, there has never been any conversation about what it was the Bidens did or did not do, or why is that so integrated into this whole entire issue, with withholding aid from Ukraine and wanting the president of Ukraine to investigate the Bidens. There's never been conversation about why were the Bidens to be investigated.
So during this break, we'll take your phone calls. And we'll go to Christian first in Indianapolis. Good evening.
Hi, yes. I just first want to thank all of you at C-SPAN for the fantastic integrity and professionalism you've shown for as long as I've been watching you. I called in just to say that perhaps what disappoints me more than the outrageous behavior we've seen from the Republicans throughout this process is the language we've heard from the Republican voters who called into C-SPAN. They express support for Trump's actions, but they never articulate any details about their actions. I've heard many callers say something along the lines of, Trump's done the best on jobs, which is an incomplete thought. How has he done the best on jobs? What about the jobs has he done the best on? What types of jobs do you believe he's created, and where has he created them? How much do they pay? If you are someone who says Trump's done the best on jobs, but you don't have an answer to any of these questions, why don't you have an answer? It is irresponsible to be an active participant in a democracy without also being an active learner. We have our government to address the issues that we as individuals cannot each address on our own. We are each team members in this effort, and we need everyone on this team to be willing to understand the issues or we will all lose.
Yes, I am concerned. Why can we not have witnesses? Why are they not allowing the witnesses when the Senate is blocking them and the president is blocking them from testifying? That don't seem right to me.
Robert, thanks for the call. And the president earlier, who is in Davos, Switzerland, had this tweet at 2:08 in the afternoon. Read the transcripts. That from the president, who will return from Davos late tomorrow on the Republican line. David, you are next. Good evening.
Good evening. My concern was, how can the Democrats put the president through all of this and not pay the taxpayers back for all these crimes that they're saying he committed? Like the Russian scandal was a hoax. They made it up, and the sis of a woman called Hillary Clinton was never going to be president, and we didn't have a better choice. So I don't see what everybody's complaining about. But being impeached for a phone call? Come on. These Democrats need to get on the ball and start working on America, not working on getting the president out. That's just not right. They should pay us back their wages for all this time that they've taken away from the United States and the people.
David, thank you. We'll go to Don next in Virginia Beach, Virginia, on the Democrats line. Have you been watching much of the proceedings today, Don?
I've been working, but I definitely am calling on a Democrat line because I've been a Democrat for 42 years. I'm a walk-away Democrat, and I've been erring on the side of the Republican conservative. I think the entire thing has been a sham right from the get-go. I think what concerns me, especially as a broadcast of C-SPAN, that mainstream media has been manipulating and using the viewer and misinformation. I hear a lot of people with the talking points from CNN and MSNBC, which are false. I think that the mainstream Democrats as well, the certain top, have been really misleading and misguiding. There is no crime. It's not been set forth. The entire Mueller investigation has been shown to be false, misleading, and now we're going into this manipulation before the 2020 election. So, the sooner they get this over with, the better for the nation, and hopefully there'll be a little better unity. But we definitely have more clarity and more exposure to the top who's been running the government needs to be cleaned up, and that's what President Trump has been trying to do.
August is up next in New Hampshire, Republican line. Good evening.
Yeah, hi, good evening. So what's curious to me is the fact that we can put in so much effort and resources in such a prompt time when it comes to the impeachment of the president. But how come almost 20 years later, we still don't have any sort of legitimate investigation involving the atrocities before, during, and after 9/11? Thank you.
Next up is Mike joining us from Virginia. Actually, we'll go to Mike in West Virginia, Republican line. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you this evening?
Fine, thank you. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Really, my only concern with all of this is that you already know what the outcome's going to be. I mean, at some point, they need to focus more on problems we have here versus just attacking a president. I mean, it's kind of stupid. They're out here basically saying he did this, he did that. Anybody that watched Adam Schiff's trial knows that he did not act unbiased. But anyways, I think we know what the outcome's going to be. So thank you.
Thank you for the call. We'll go to Mike in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening. Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed in the Republican leadership with this. I've been looking forward to the Senate trial, so we get to see the witnesses that weren't allowed to be called during the House proceedings. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the evidence would exonerate Trump, but instead we're just getting this childish tit for tat as payback for what happened in the House proceedings.
Thank you for the call. Rebecca in Louisville, Kentucky, the Republican leader's home city.
Yes, I'm calling about because from the onset of this situation of accusations against President Trump, I've always felt like it was more of a branding. I've been a registered Democrat for 38 years. I'm finding myself really pulling away from the Democratic Party because I'm seeing less and less integrity and ethics in their jobs that they're hired to do to represent their constituents. I think that by trying to brand President Trump and just hurt him, I don't think I really believe that's their goal. They're really hurting the people. They're not hurting the president. They're hurting us, the people of America, the people that get up every day and go to work, that pay our taxes, that vote, that follow our laws. There has been improvement in our country. He gets no acknowledgement or recognition for that, which shows their bias. I think they're bringing division and hate between the people, and I'm really disgusted with all of this.
Danny in Ashburn, Virginia, independent line. Good evening.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to make a point that I'm noticing, along with what the ladies previously on the line said, a lot of people out there thinking, oh, this is part of this long-term campaign by whatever the left or the Democrats to try to get Trump out of office. And I get that sentiment, but if we just take for a second the assumption that Democrats have been wanting to impeach President Trump since day one, does that assumption necessarily take away from the legitimacy of this impeachment itself? What I'm saying is, even if the Democrats have been wanting to impeach the president, if this is indeed a serious enough incident, a conduct that warrants proper investigation and, in the end, proper impeachment, then that doesn't necessarily. We shouldn't dismiss that just because there's this perception that Democrats have been opposed to the presidents in the past. I think there's a lot of this narrative going around of trying to paint this impeachment as part of a long-building political campaign, and it's sort of easy to do that on the other side of things, I guess, but I think we need to sort of be clear about what this represents.
Robert from Amarillo, Texas, Republican line. How much of this have you been watching, Robert?
Well, probably for the last couple of hours.
What do you think?
And throughout the day. I think it's a joke. It's a joke for what the Democrats are doing. My question there is that, I watched after President Trump won, and the Democrats all got together, and I heard different ones talking, saying what they were going to do to take him out.
Thank you. Rick in Dayton, Ohio, Democrats line. Good evening.
Hello.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I'd like just to say that I find it funny that it wasn't a Democrat that withheld the military aid from Ukraine. It wasn't the Democrats that broke the law withholding that military aid. It wasn't a Democrat that brought any of this on Donald Trump. Donald J. Trump brought this on himself. And it did begin when he got elected. He's lied about many things. They've caught him in his lies. I forget, it's 30-some thousand now, I think, of his lies and cheating. So, this was coming, and that was predicted a long time ago that this would come sooner or later, an impeachment for him. And I just wish that most people would take that into consideration and just understand that there were laws broke here, and he's just being held accountable. That's all.
Bill in Newburgh, Indiana, you're next. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Go ahead with your comment.
How are you? Oh, okay, my comment is we hopefully will have an independent decision made by the Senate based on the information available as to whether or not the president should be removed from office. We've seen promises and promises from the top Republicans on down that this is just will be a show of force, and then they will do their job. They need to pay attention to what the facts are in the case, and if a senator does not pay attention to those facts and does not base his decision on those facts, he should not be eligible to be reelected. He should be removed from office at the next election.
Bill, thank you. And this is from Aaron Cox in Kentucky saying, while the president is out working for the American people, these Democrats are wasting time keeping this country going. Gene in Porter, Texas, Republican line.
I'm just curious. I mean, my president has to put up with Pelosi and everybody else. This should be over with already. This is ridiculous, and it's wasting my money. I want a refund. I mean, this is nuts. And why does people put up with this?
Thank you. We'll go to Roy in Summerfield, Ohio. Your comment on all of this.
Yes, I'm a lifelong Democrat, and my wife and I both have been ashamed of the concocted process that the Democrat representatives for us have put forth in front of Congress and now the Senate. And I think it's shameful that a president who has done nothing but positive results has made our 401ks jump sky high, has made the unemployment rate go way low, history-setting marks on the Dow, and now you want to bring this to the sham to the Senate for no reason, to waste our time, waste our money, and I think it's shameful. I'm ashamed to be a Democrat. I'm ashamed at our representatives and the lies that they brought forth and this sad scam. I'm just really ashamed.
Lisa is next in New Jersey, our line for independence. What's on your mind tonight?
Hi. Good evening.
Good evening.
I appreciate your coverage on this. I've been watching all day. I've been very involved with this. The biggest part of the problem is our corporate rule of our government, and that's why everybody's become so divisive in politics. And that's the problem with this entire case. No one wants to listen to the facts. I grew up in New York, and I moved to New Jersey. I know what Trump's dealings are. I know very well people.
The Senate will come to order.